and welcome to the Mark Prater podcast, where our aim is to connect our global family of churches with our executive director. Mark, as many people have traveled over the summer and experienced the anxiety of being in airports with delays and cancellations, I just got back last night. My local airport closed its landing strip at 12, and I got back at 11:55 by the skin of my teeth from Louisville because I was there the past few days with you and a number of other guys at a leadership development retreat.
You were, and I'm so glad that you were there. I actually got home safely as well, which is really remarkable because I was traveling with Joel Shorey.
Yep.
And Joel Shorey has a number of traveling stories. A lot of them have to do with planes, such as engines catching on fire, planes being struck by lightning and completely losing power. He's still alive. That's the good news. If you don't know Joel, he's still alive. And we got home safely last night as well.
Amazing.
Joel was with you in Louisville, so was I, along with a number of other guys, which I'll explain in a moment. We did a leadership development retreat that started on Monday, went through Friday, had two groups of guys that I'll explain in just a moment. But here's why we do leadership development. In wanting to honor Scripture and in wanting to see our family of churches to be multi-generational for the purpose of passing on the gospel. We want to invest in the future generations. You see that in Scripture. Obviously, there's the role of families passing on the gospel to future generations. Certainly in the New Testament, Christ comes and he establishes his bride, his church. And Paul writes about investing into future leaders. To Timothy, for example, you see Paul's investment into Timothy and then encouraging Timothy to invest in men that can continue the work of the gospel. So any local church that prays to be multi-generational, any family of churches that prays to be multi-generational, which I pray God allows us to be multi-generational, we need to be intentional to invest into younger men who will someday, or maybe even currently, serve as extra local leaders to strengthen our churches and to help us plant churches as we advance the gospel together. So that was what sort of lie behind the motivation that lie behind our retreat this week. And we had two different groups, what we're calling the National Leaders Fellowship, guys that we've been actually meeting with for, this would have been our sixth retreat. We started in 2017. And some of those guys that were a part of this National Leaders Fellowship are actually now on the leadership team. So at one time, Jared Mellinger, John Payne, Eric Trebetsky, and Dave Taylor were in that group. But when they transitioned to the leadership team, we kept this group of guys that we invest into, and they're just a wonderful group of guys. And then the second half of the week, we've got another group of guys that are younger than the first group, men like you, Ben, that were there, Joel Shorey, obviously I've mentioned his name already, that was there. And we just want to begin investing into you, man. This was your second retreat together. And what was so wonderful is our opportunity as a leadership team. In this case, it was myself and Jeff Percival and John Payne, just to equip you and invest into you. But what is really wonderful is to watch the relationships develop, the friendships strengthen among men who are from different parts of the country. Josh Tong came from Canada, who typically don't get a chance to interact. And so you build those friendships now, those relationships now, knowing that in the future, you may be helping to lead Sovereign Grace together. And that relational foundation is going to be very, very important. So it was just a wonderful week on so many levels. But I wanted to ask you, Ben, since this is now your second retreat and you just got back last night, what was your experience? How did the week impact you and affect you?
Well, as last year, maybe even more this year, I enjoyed it even more because now I know the guys in that group. Whereas before I was meeting them last year. I mean, one of the main highlights, of course, is just the time we spend together, connecting with each other, praying for each other, learning from one another, building the relational connective tissue that is a hallmark of Sovereign Grace culture. And so to be in a room full of men who are eagerly and faithfully pastoring their local churches, as we shared updates and interacted. I spent a couple hours with a guy learning about how they went to two services because we're looking at that possibility. So just learning and enjoying one another's company in the kind of culture that we have come to expect, and we are grateful for a room full of men that are humble, joyful, grateful, carrying each other's burdens. I was also uh, struck by you shared some thoughts about leadership in a domination leadership role. John Payne shared about regional leaders and the heart of the regional leader, and I just so grateful to be reminded that the emphasis on leadership in Sovereign Grace is all about a heart to serve, a heart of love, a heart of sacrificial love for others. It is not about lording over or authoritarianism. It is our leadership, the leadership gifts we enjoy in Sovereign Grace. We love the gift of leadership. And so Sovereign Grace is to be celebrated. It's a sweet gift from God. But the way that it is, that leadership is discharged in Sovereign Grace is compelling, and it's edifying. And it was wonderful to enjoy that once again.
It was one of the things I so appreciate about the week as well. And I'd heard this before. Jeff Purswell taught a session on pneumatological reflections, basically, is what it was. And it was so important for a leadership development retreat, because one of the takeaways from that that teaching from Jeff and interaction with Jeff was a leader's dependence upon God daily.
Yes.
Leaders' dependence upon the Spirit, to be led by the Spirit. We want to be Spirit-led men, pastors, and Spirit-led leaders. So I was grateful for that as well.
Yes, and just that kind of Jeff's instruction there just led to a conversation where just men who have been walking with the Lord for many years and serving in churches for many years, still asking questions, leaning in. How can I grow in dependence on God? How can I apply what we're learning here? Even just then, we just hearts open toward the Lord, desire for greater dependency and expectation for what God will do as we grow in our dependency. So those spontaneous moments that break out around the times of teaching are sweet and edifying and encouraging as well.
Yeah, it's the retreat context. You can't necessarily do that as effectively over Zoom, and grateful that we're able to do it. I'm so glad you could be there.
Me too. Thank you so much for inviting me, Mark. What are you looking forward to when it comes to leadership development in the days ahead?
Yeah, I think what I'm looking forward to is obviously continue to invest into guys, but as an older guy in Sovereign Grace, I'm looking forward to seeing men deployed into extra local roles as guys like me transition out, whatever point that is. I'm looking forward to that. And then after that transition, what I'm looking forward to is being their biggest cheerleader and being their biggest encourager. And I want other guys that are my age or maybe a bit older to just adopt that heart and that posture for younger men. We are for you. We are going to encourage you and lead on, and we're going to follow.
Grateful for you, Mark. One correction. I am not younger than John Payne and Jared Mellinger, but Eric Trebetsky is significantly older than me. So
yeah, that's great. Although I think you might look and act a little bit younger than John and Jared.
Oh, actually. But I don't think that's a compliment.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mark, and the rest of the guys in the leadership team for your thoughtful and deliberate way that you seek to raise up the next generation of leaders in Sovereign Grace, even as we seek to do that as pastors in our local context for the sake of the mission of Jesus and furthering his kingdom through our feeble, faltering efforts empowered by the Spirit, all because of the grace of God. So thank you, Mark, and thank you all for reading or watching. We'll see you here next week, Lord willing. Bye for now.
Thank you for watching. If you have questions or comments, Mark would love to hear from you. For more videos like this, hit subscribe on YouTube or by email at markkprater.com.